There we go. Okay. You got it. Yep. Okay. Ask everyone to stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 2, introduction of council members, mayor, and staff. Go around the room.
Mr. President, Kenneth Ferris,
Ken.
Office Assistant Solicitor.
Thank you. Phil Wurst, engineer for council. Deb McBreen, exec secretary. Councilman, secretary Joe Wenzel, myself, Ed Tokmajian, Councilman Sloan, vice president of council. Councilman Knowles is over here on to the right. Next to Mr. Knowles is the mayor. And then we have our solicitor, Joe Pizzo, and then last but not least, John Chakowski, our director of admin. Agenda number 3, public comments.
Mr. President, Mr. Kisselback is excused for tonight due to illness.
Good point. Thank you for the reminder. Mr.
You're very
Kisselback is not attending the meeting this evening. He's still not feeling well. Thanks for the reminder. I also wanted to turn to Mr. Pizzo. Did you want to announce exec?
I did. Thank you, Mr. President. Council met in executive session immediately prior to this evening's council meeting for approximately 1 hour. Present for that executive session were the 4 members of council present here this evening: the mayor, the director of administration, the township engineer, Mr. Ferris, and me. A single matter of pending litigation was discussed. No official action was taken during the executive session, and no action will be required at this evening's council meeting as a result of that executive session.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Agenda number 3, public comments, limited to the agenda items. Anybody, public comments? I do not see anything. I'll move to agenda number 4, the approval of council meetings for December 1st, 2025. Gentlemen, have you had a chance to review? Do you have any additions and or corrections?
I was good. I didn't see anything. Yeah, I was in one here.
Okay. Hearing no corrections, I'll call for a motion to accept and approve the meeting minutes from December 1st.
I'll make a motion, since I was the only one here at the time, but I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second it. I was here in the audience, not up here.
Okay,
but,
sorry.
Okay. I'll call the vote. So all in favor to accept the minutes, vote aye.
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 All against? Anyone against? Abstain. Okay. Deb, minutes approved. Just going to move right along. Agenda number 5, discussion regarding the reopening of the 2026 budget. And let me start with a few comments on this. I want to take a moment to explain why reopening the budget is being discussed and what it is, and more importantly, what it's not. If council should want to pursue reopening the budget, I wanted to briefly address some of the misinformation and fear-based messaging that's been circulating over social media. This has been no secret. As I stated in the last meeting, that we were trying to be fully transparent with the mayor and the administration in terms of, in December, in terms of looking at the budget. So let me make this really clear. This is not about cutting services, and it's not about raising taxes. That's not our intent, and that's not the direction that we're headed this evening. There was reference on the budget to a $14 million deficit. That is, as we all know, largely a paper deficit driven by accounting assumptions and the timing of revenues and expenses. That said, the 2025 budget, as presented, still draws the general fund down to approximately $8.9 million. And even if that part of the deficit is on paper, That level of ongoing fund balance drawdown is something that we have a responsibility to take seriously. And not once was this $14 million deficit brought up during the December budget meeting. Reopening the budget allows us to, if council so chooses, the budget allows us to proactively review those assumptions, focus on non-contractual spending items, and better understand what our true contractual obligations look like in the near term. This is about aligning the budget with real defensible numbers, not worst-case scenarios or best-case assumptions. So taking that step now helps us protect township services, maintain fiscal stability, and most importantly, avoid tax increases in the future. So ignoring these trends today would only make the tough choices harder tomorrow. And one thing I did want to point out, John, do you mind, please? For the public's sake and for council's sake, I wanted to just show a historical trend of the actuals. It's simplistic. So these are what you're seeing up here on the screen this evening are actual numbers from the general fund, starting from 2018 all the way through the projected of 2026. Sorry to clarify, the projected is for 2025 and 2026. When Councilman Sloan and I were on the board, and we had certain issues surrounding the way that the budget was submitted in 18, we voted against the budget largely because it included a $16 million deficit. As a result of that budget year, we saw a decrease of that general fund from 27.8 down to 21.9. Thereafter, we voted in favor of the budget, and in large part because we saw improvement in the way that the budget was being done year over year. So as you see, 19, it went from 21.9 to 22.5. From 2020 to 2021, it went from 22.5 to 27.2. And in the year thereafter, went from 27.2 to $31 million. I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that we saw improvement with the way we were doing things over those number of years. Now, over these last few years, we're starting to see this trend reverse itself. And this just simply highlights that, and that's the reason why we wanted to bring this discussion up. And you'll see that the 2024, we landed at $30 million. The projected, and I don't know if you have this now yet, John, but projected was we were going to land at 23.5, which was largely a $7 million a drop. And then, of course, the 2026, which lands us at 8.9. That's good, John. If you want that, you can. Okay. So with that said, I have and the other thing too as well, I wanted to also point out and notate that we spent several hours, and I wanted to thank you for the time that you took with myself and Councilman Wenzel reviewing it. And I appreciate you responding back on a number of those items. And I have a few items, but I want to make sure that they're not duplicative to what some of my other colleagues up on the board are. So what I'll do is I'll just start. I'll start with my left, and we'll see if Councilman Wenzel has any questions or concerns or anything that he wants to add to that, and then I'll move on.
Just a few things that I personally noticed was with the drawdown's not a safe place that we're in. So we had some conversations with John, and he knows where we stand. So I think that if we collectively sit here and look, we can all move forward with making better decisions for the township. So we will address these as a whole. I feel that'd be a good situation. So I'll yield my time.
Thanks, Joe. Councilman Sloan?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Jakowski, I know during the budget meeting and in the subsequent communication we've all had, you mentioned, so we have about $65 million operating budget, roughly, okay? And you mentioned about 73% of that is contractually obligated. And there's really, my understanding is there's really not much room from, the administration side of where you think that there's any time to kind of tighten the belt there. But there were a couple areas of uncertainty or opportunities just from reading the meeting minutes from that budget meeting. There were a few things that I just kind of want to ask about and see kind of where we stand. And maybe these are opportunities where we can improve some of this budgeting just on that 73% side without even getting to those static operating expenses. Health insurance costs, I think during the meeting it was brought up that those were estimated to be about a 7.5% to 9% increase from the year before.
Correct.
Totally understandable. No one has had their head in the sand. We see where this is going.
Sure.
But we're now into 2026. Do we know more at this point
Yeah,
about what
so
that
we
rate
actually have
is?
received 2026 rates. What they are right now, I don't know off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
can certainly let you know where. So as we discussed in the meeting, in 2025, we belong to a consortium, multi-municipality consortium for our health insurance and our dental insurance. As part of this consortium, the consortium allows us a rate stabilization credit. What that credit allows us is we have two options. One, you allow it to build up for a number of years and you can use it, or you can use it year after year. In 2025, we did decide to use it. So I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm going to say it was probably a couple $1 million is what the rate stabilization was up to at that point in time. So when looking at 2025 actuals, you're going to see a much larger increase compared to 2026 budgeted numbers. Again, I don't know off the top of my head what the increase came in. I can let you all know that tomorrow. But we do have 26 rates. I can tell you it's under 8%. I want to say it's around 5, but I'll like I said, I'll determine that tomorrow. But you will see, and that's one thing that we have to, that I want to make sure I point out is that when you're looking at 25, when the final numbers come through, you're going to see a reduction down from 24 to 25, and then you're going to see a drastic increase from 25 to 26. What I can let you know is what the rate increase was without that rate stabilization. So the rate stabilization, we're now letting build up again. The consortium allocates so much per year to the municipalities based on their size. So that will go forward. And then we can utilize it. We can discuss whether we use it every year. We let it build up like we have. Those type of scenarios we can have discussions on going forward. But to answer your question, which I know I rambled on a little bit,
okay.
but to answer your question, I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but I can let you know in the
Okay.
morning.
So my follow-on question that is probably some homework is there an opportunity to, is that an area of the budget that maybe we have over budgeted? We know more now on what those rates
Sure.
are. So we can kind of maybe bring that down because we probably budgeted higher than, thinking that it was going to be the worst case scenario.
Yeah, we budgeted at 8%. I can tell you that much. We
Okay.
did budget at 8%. So could there be a reduction in that line? Absolutely.
Okay, so that's, one area where we can look at. Another thing that struck me, I think there were a couple positions that, I think deputy positions, there was maybe deputy of public works. I know we've talked in the past about leaving a director of finance, position within the budget in case we need it. Mm-hmm. But at this time, we seem to be functioning okay, and we don't really intend to fill those positions. So
Yep.
that's an area where there's also room to cut some space from the budget. And really what we're looking at is just these are paper deficits.
Yep.
And trying to better understand, what the actual financial temperature is.
Sure.
And so those are areas where I personally would be more comfortable if, we removed it, get a better number, and then if the administration decides, no, we really need this, come back to council and we can adjudicate it at that point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple different instances like that scattered throughout, and so that's on that 73% side. On the other 27% side, by math, it's about $17.5 million.
Correct.
Of which I'm assuming $4.5 million is the homeowners casino rebate.
Correct.
And so we're not touching that. We're leaving that in there.
Yep.
So that there's a remainder of $13 million of that kind of static operating expenses. He says pretty much the same year after year. It goes up, as prices for office supplies, whatever else
Sure.
goes up. So, my question is, how much margin has there been? If you could sift out just that static operating expense, what does that look like year on year? What are the actuals, the audited financials of kind of that static category?
While I don't have that here.
Right, I know you won't have
I
it
could
tonight.
certainly provide you with those numbers for the past couple years as to where it stands. The one thing that we do have to realize too is that most departments stay static with their department operating expenses. Usually you only see minor increases, and that's due to property insurance, as we discussed, or utilities, if something, utility bills have increased or something to that extent. We do 3-year comparisons when we're doing the budget in the summertime, when we start in July, August timeframe. Obviously, when it's submitted to councils in November, and then from November, December, you know, there is significant change, whether increase, decrease, whatever the scenario lies. So to answer your question, I don't know what the operating expenses come in, but you also have capital items, right? So you know, 1 year we may buy a dump truck out of general fund, and then the next 2 years we don't. So without, and again, we can massage those numbers to show, well, it was you know, in 2022 it was this much, but we did make a purchase of X as a capital that we don't have in future years. So we can look at those figures.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate that, because and I completely agree with your logic on that. You know, you'll see a higher uptick in some years due to some kind of major expenditure that is a one-off type thing. You know, what I'm really, I think, trying to drive at is, so there's 13 million budgeted, and what we say are these kind of static, they don't change much. So what are the actuals? Is the actual really coming in at 8 million every year? Is it coming in closer to like 11 million every year?
We don't know what that number is.
Right, that's the kind of information that'll give us a little bit more insight on, you know, are we padding it too heavily? And again, creating this kind of large paper deficit. And we've seen that, you know, we tend to budget a larger deficit. It doesn't come out that way at the end of the year.
Correct.
But we're authorizing that, we're allowing that. And even if I go back to that 73% of that kind of contractually obligated, most of those are, you know, contracts that are agreed upon by the administration that council has no say in. And so we don't get any word of it until the budget comes in front of us, and we're handcuffed to this at that point. So, you know, is there something, and maybe Mr. Pais, this is a question for you, what can we do to ensure, you know, is it a change to the ordinance to ensure that council is part of those contract negotiations, approves those contracts? I know that the school board actually approves, you know, the teacher union contract because it affects so massively on the budget. Why aren't we doing something similar here at the township level?
In this instance, it's just because of the form of government we have with the strong mayor, optional Plan B form of government that the voters adopted back in the late 1980s. The administration is responsible for all of those personnel matters. So, you know, if when all is said and done, if the mayor in negotiating with the police union, the public works union, whatever it might be, has to then come to council at budget time and say, well, it's now going to cost this amount of money to run the police department, and if council isn't agreeable to the dollar amount that's included in the budget, then council has the ability to turn around and say, well, we're not going to approve a police budget of $43 million. So,
But
Mayor.
But the contracts are negotiated and executed before that budget even gets presented to the township.
That's correct.
In some cases, may not. There are particular issues where, as we discussed, we have 4 upcoming unions that are negotiating this year. Their contracts expire at the end of this year. We could be still in negotiations at budget time. We could be in negotiations come next year, as long as we're in good faith negotiations, or, you know, we could be heading to arbitration for 2 of the unions. We really strive not to do that, and we haven't had to do that in a good number of years. But you just never know. You never know what's being offered by the other side that could stem wherever we're heading. We have had issues where contract negotiations do run to the next year, and we have a good estimate as to where we're going to head with it, and we make it work, so.
And how many years are those contracts for?
It varies. The last contracts were 5 years, so that's all negotiated as well.
So,
We've had 3-year contracts, we've had 4-year contracts, we've had 5 years, it all depends on what the parties agree to.
But to Mr. Sloan's point, I mean, we're talking the late 1980s. So it's 2026. I mean, wouldn't it make sense that the governing body of the township also review and approve those contracts? Particularly because of the fact that the governing body of this township is ultimately the one that's responsible for approving the budget, which includes those contracts, those contractual items, right?
and it's not a question of taking any authority away. It's the collaboration, working together between mayor and council to ensure that we're doing what's the most fiscally responsible scenario moving forward. I think that's,
I just make a point, I don't think, we negotiate the contract. Now, I don't know what, as you just said, Joe, at some point, as we negotiated, right, we could bring that in and then say, yeah, this is what we negotiated, and you say no, well, then you got your same answer.
Right.
But I don't think you negotiate with us as we're negotiating with the people.
I don't think we're asking that, right?
no, I mean, well, I'm trying to understand really what the options are
Right, yeah.
to improve our own visibility into 73% of the budget that we are locked into
Yep.
potentially for 5 years at a time.
Yep. Or at least holding them accountable to the point that they're ensuring that the contracts are negotiated in the best interest, obviously, for the township and for taxpayers.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
And I know you do.
Yeah, that's the mayor's
And I
responsibility.
get it. But ultimately,
Well, it's just not a clear line in the sand, as much as I think we would ideally like it to be. You know, it's because we do have the budget, and because, again, 73%, we're stuck in with those contracts. I think we need
Just
more
I
of a
think
voice in
what
that process.
What Joe said is the way we negotiate the project, bring it to, you don't like it, it's that simple.
Okay.
I think it's fair. I mean, come on, we're negotiating, we're the administration
Yeah.
doing our
Okay with
job. Then you don't like it?
I'm okay with that. I guess it's a question of, is that something that should be factored into the municipal code of ordinances, or is that just the way that the way business is done?
Well,
It'd be
it's-
great to have this codified so we can have more clarity on this process moving forward.
The powers of the respective branches of government and the responsibilities that are spelled out in our administrative code flow directly from the optional plans and home rule charter law. And those have, again, been in place since the optional plan form of government was approved by the voters and implemented in the late 1980s, early 1990s. So the structure of the government is laid out by the legislature and is dictated by and through the second-class township code as modified by the optional plan law. And so there isn't a ton of leeway for council and the mayor to start to make changes to that form of government because it is dictated by statute.
And even
So-
the allowed changes are dictated by statute, correct?
That's correct. So what you would be doing essentially is what the conversation that you're having right now with the mayor is, which is if council is asking that before the township enters into a collective bargaining agreement, you'd like the opportunity to review it and weigh in on it first. I think the mayor's saying that's fine.
Okay.
And so,
Okay. All right, so I'd like to then kind of note that in the minutes for tonight's meeting, that the mayor has agreed to allow council to review and weigh in on any collective bargaining agreements through the negotiation process, at the end of negotiation process,
Give you the
before it gets
process, before it
approved
gets
by the
signed.
township. Okay.
I have no problem with that.
I think that's a very fair compromise, and I really appreciate you willing to work with us on that. And I think we'll be in a better position to just even wrap our hands around the numbers on that, so we can, make sure that we're understanding. Like I said, I go back to these paper deficits of, what's 14.5 million of a deficit if it's really going to shake out to 8 million at the end of the year or what. But there is still a trajectory of the end, that fund balance of the general fund going down, and that concerns me over time.
Just for the sake of the minute, and for the sake of the public, when we have in our budget, we don't spend all that money. We have a fund balance that
Oh, I
we
know.
carry over. I don't want people to think, as we're discussing here, that everything's in that budget we spend. That's not the case. We have a fund balance in every single line, unless there's an, oh my God, which we haven't had. So just,
But that, completely understand, and I respect that has been the strategy in the past. I have a concern that we are allowing, council is essentially approving, or has approved, just a month ago, the allowance to spend all of that. And so there's nothing we could do, any of the five of us.
now,
If you wanted to spend all of
That's
that,
correct, Jess. I
you
just
could
want to
do
make
that.
it clear we don't do that. That's all I want to make.
right, and I understand that's the practice, but there's nothing that prevents you from spending all of that, and that's what concerns me.
Yeah, if you get another mayor here, it might
Can I make
happen.
a copy, can I make a comment?
Please.
Okay. A couple points I would like to make, from my perspective anyway. One, that John spent time, and I thanked him the night of the budget. John spent hours on the phone with me, just like he spent time with Ed and Joe. So this did come up because I asked him directly about this, okay? And first of all, we have a top bond rating, okay? We have a top bond rating, so they audit our books, and we have a top bond rating. There's extra money in departments, that we could push and say on paper, we wouldn't have this kind of deficit on paper. But that money's not spent, like the mayor said. And he's got a pretty good track record of that, besides saying it's not being spent. So, and he was overwhelmingly voted back as mayor at a higher margin than anybody else that won an election in Bucks County almost. So there's a trust factor there. And he also meets with the department heads every week and makes sure that that money's not being spent. And then if it's not there at the end of the year, we would know at the end of the year when we go to do our budgets. So I just think that, in my perspective, the bond rating was good. Also, we had COVID during this time period, okay? So it wasn't just that
We were through.
Ed and Jesse left.
No, yeah.
And we got out of hand and didn't pay attention. We had COVID, okay? So we had COVID during this time. And I said to John, why is it down to 8? And he explained, well, we don't want to raise taxes. And we also have a fund, what's it, 46 million or something? We also have a savings fund of $46 million that we saved. Now, we borrowed off of that and paid ourselves back at an interest rate. And we have a very good interest rate because our bond rating's so good, because the auditors and the banks are so impressed with the way we budget. So it's not like this complete thing that no one's paying attention, or the mayor's not paying attention. And his track record hasn't raised taxes besides for voting on the EMS or the fire people, a separate thing. We haven't raised taxes, and so you have a budget.
Taxes went up 2 years ago. Let's not kid ourselves.
Taxes
There
did.
was Parks and Rec.
It was-
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec. Oh, yeah,
There was a fee that was
But we
added.
did that, Parks and Rec, we did do that, okay? So 30 years ago, besides Parks and Rec, but we made it public that we wanted to do Parks and Rec. So, and if I was taking over in Middletown Township, I'd reopen their budget, because they're raising taxes, and they're doubling their and Northampton's raising
not
taxes.
recommending anything
So we're
to
not,
that right now.
we're not raising taxes. We have $47 million in savings that we make money on now. As interest rates are up, we made money on. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's not this other council members weren't paying attention, so
Yeah.
we let it get down to this, and, because that's a false
No, Joe, I
put out there.
appreciate that
My
perspective.
question to that then is, if we have all that information, we have all that data, then why are we showing a budget deficit instead of a balanced budget?
Well,
That's my question.
Well, it's on paper, Joe, and
I understand, but if on paper, then why aren't we showing a
okay,
balanced
so we
budget?
could
That's my
take,
question.
we
Yeah.
could take money, like you said, from, he now knows what the healthcare is. So we could take that money and put it towards the deficit on paper. We do now say we don't have to buy a dunk truck, so we can put that money back on paper. So we do leave extra money in each department, okay? So, and you could argue, we don't want to do that, we want to put all of it on paper, and then if they need a dunk truck, they got to come to council and say, I need a dunk truck, and then we all argue whether they should get a dunk truck or not. But if you want to do it that way, that's fine, okay? But it's the mayor's budget, and I had confidence in the way the mayor ran the administration. And apparently the people had confidence in the way he ran the administration too, because he won by over 2,000 votes.
Mr. Knowles, that's the
Okay.
second, Mr. Knowles, that's the second time you brought that up, and at this point,
Well,
yeah. But conversely, we could argue that.
Well, you brought it up to
they also-
council.
but-
Yeah, we're not, I don't want to have
Let
an
me
election
respond. So
conversation.
the interest rate's also an added expense, right?
Yeah.
And the $46 million trust fund
Right.
is there, and it helps us create that bond rating. And look, all we're doing is we're asking certain questions to make sure that we're
I'm not against you.
maintaining a responsible budget.
But you also
That's all.
said that it never came up, the situation.
it didn't, Joe.
Well,
I
it
was
did
here.
come up, because we discussed it with John.
Okay, but it didn't come up at a public meeting, as I have the minutes right
Okay,
here.
well,
Joe.
because we weren't overly concerned about it, because I
Okay.
trusted that the administration was
let me-
running it right the same way that we did it every year.
so I-
Real quick, if I can just.
Go ahead, John.
So, Councilman Wenzel, you had asked the question as to why do we have this deficit? So, I mean, if you look at the numbers that Councilman Talkmajian provided, revenue is flat. I mean, we've instituted the earned income tax where it was only a new tax to a third of our residents, because over half of our residents were already paying in other places. So it was basically a change to a third of that half that we're not paying in other places, like myself and the other individuals that might be sitting here. But revenue is flat. Expenditures, we have no control over. A cost of a cop car goes up double digits every year because Ford decides to do so. The cost of dump trucks continually rise. Road repaving that we do every year, every other year, or every 2 years. Those numbers every 2 years, even if we're doing the same amount of mileage, you can't imagine the cost. It's the external struggles that the private businesses and the private companies have to pass back on to us as a municipality for that service that we're trying to purchase from them. That is basically what's caused a large chunk of this problem. Yes, wages and benefits also come into play. We do a very strong comparison when we go out for contract negotiations to see what comparable departments are offering, municipalities are offering, and then we negotiate accordingly. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Well, ultimately it's a push either way. I mean, anyone who's in a union, I mean, Joe, you're in a union, you know there's gives and takes. Contributions to health insurance, all those type of things are things that we do. Elimination of pension plans, those type of things to try and reduce these increasingly expenses to our salaries and benefits. But ultimately, I mean, revenues are flat. Without trying to, and I know we've discussed, different possibilities of fees that we could try and develop of some sort, and we do it all the time, year after year. Of, well, what if we try and assert this fee on this program or something to that extent, or this particular business or whatever. But you can see it. While we see ebbs and flows of it, that could be interest rate caused by the negotiations with the banks as far as what our annual interest rate is. We continually see real estate tax assessment reductions from businesses, from private houses, from everything. So the only true, I'll say, increase is the earned income tax, because fortunately mostly everyone gets increases in their wages, which in turn the earned income tax increases. But Middletown, as was just discussed, They just implemented a full 1%. They went from a half to a full 1%. That's going to hurt us because you had a Middletown resident working here. They paid a half to Middletown, a half to us. Now we're losing that half a percent that's going to return back to Middletown as it could. So, I just wanted to put that out there that it's certainly not for the lack of trying, but there's only so much we can do revenue-wise.
John, I don't think we're suggesting that.
No,
all I'm saying is that the charts certainly reflect, we don't always necessarily know where we're going to land at year end, and we still don't know what 25 is going to look like.
Correct.
So we are concerned about the downward trend of the lowering of the general fund, and at some point, we've got to make a decision, right?
And-
The decision's going to either, we're going to borrow from ourselves, we're going to create an additional expense to pay ourselves back at some point, we're going to have to take from the trust fund, or we're going to have to increase taxes again. So,
Right.
we're trying to avoid that conversation.
Understood.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just wanted to answer.
No, and I appreciate that.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be argumentative, I
No,
really
it's
don't.
fine,
But
Joe,
my point is this, though, okay? As far as last year's budget, I think you're, in my opinion, okay, you're better off concentrating on the next budget, okay? Like, if you take money and shift it from the departments and put it to make that number look better on paper, it doesn't make it any better than it is. Okay, it is what it is at this point, and it is pretty good. But it wasn't because we didn't see that. I just got the impression that you were leaving the people that were listening, the impression that, oh, the other council wasn't paying attention and it went down, and there was COVID, there's expenses. 3/4 of our budget is the police. Okay, almost 3/4 of the budget is the police department. They negotiate with unions, and they deserve to be paid because they're doing a good job. Sure. But we try to keep that in line too. And at some point, everything's going to have to change eventually. But we've been trying to keep our, the mayor runs a tight ship with the department heads, and he runs a tight ship and he watches over things. And part of that confidence was my vote for this budget. So I think we're better off, instead of, bringing all this up and regurgitating last year's budget, why don't we concentrate on, the mayor's already said, hey, when I negotiate with the unions, I'm going to come to you guys and say, hey, we think this is the best we can do because of this reason and that reason. You think this is going to work? This is going to affect our budget this way? And we can have more conversations with John. If we don't like it, they can try to go back or let unions go on strike. I mean, that's what they do. You know what I mean? So we can have choices like that, but I don't know. We can start having early meetings for next year's budget.
So I have that on this item. I just want to go back to Councilman Sloan. Did you wrap up your items?
Well, I mean, I have more, and John, I'm happy to kind of email you or call you.
Yeah.
And we can kind of talk through some of these
I
questions.
would welcome that.
We certainly have that all the time.
Yeah, I have no problem doing that, and I just didn't get a chance to do it until, as I was working through all these. But I want to circle back to, I think, where you're going, and something that Councilman Knoll said about how we know at budget time, how much will be left over. And so what I would love to see, and John, we did this a couple years back when I was on council, is we were starting to get quarterly updates on the budget. I would love to see that again, and maybe at a council meeting where we can look at, a quarterly update of the budget, how we're tracking, and to look at this kind of, this trend of, all right, here's where we are, say, at the end of Q1 2026, well, where were we in Q1 2025, 2024, and start to see, are we really tracking the same way? And it kind of goes back to looking at those static costs, some kind of breakdown. It doesn't have to be necessarily that full, detailed, comprehensive budget that you give us, and I really do appreciate that. It gives a lot of information, but a way that we can kind of synthesize the data and start to get a better idea of how we're tracking, and also start those budget discussions for next year earlier so that we can,
I think
get
that's
ahead
good.
of it, and we know what's going on. Whether it's contract negotiations means, there's more uncertainty associated with it. There could be some restructuring, too, of the budget, whereas, there's a lot of talk about padding, so to speak, padding each of these different line items, to make sure there's margin. What if there's just a contingency? And to dip into, beyond X amount of that contingency, that requires coming back to council. That way we know what's going on. And that may vary from department to department, I understand that. But again, it's getting a better understanding of what the actual budget is anticipated to be, as opposed to approving something that has so much margin that if the mayor and the administration chose to spend the full authorized amount, it could really jeopardize our financial position.
Of course.
And I know that's not the intent, but there's nothing that's going to prevent you from doing that.
Well,
Aside from, I get it, there's
ethically.
trust.
I mean, that's ultimately where it comes down to.
And I understand that, and I respect that. I'm not saying that, I anticipate that you guys are trying to mess with the whole township, and I'm really not suggesting that at all. But there's nothing that prevents you from doing that, and that concerns me.
Trust.
Well, we
I-
catch up to it a little bit later, but not on a quarterly basis.
Yeah.
They're not going to just outright get away with doing anything.
Well, and that's why I
It's
think
gonna-
quarterly,
it's gonna catch
quarterly
up.
updates would be really
It's gonna-
nice, especially looking at how it's tracking against the budget, how it's trending year over year. That would be really insightful
And
for
I wanted to
us.
mention one thing too. I discussed this with Mr. Wenzel the other day when we were here for the lieutenant promotion. We were talking about this. But the parks, out of the $10 million they give us, okay, we're giving $300 back to each homeowner. That's $4.5 million. It costs $4.5 million that we're giving back to the residents. So if the average tax from the township is $450 on the average home, some are higher, but some are not. But so it's $450. We're giving $300 of it back, and then we're giving low-income seniors a chance to get more back.
Sure.
Okay, so if we just cut out the $300, that's $4.5 million saved. So we gave $60-70 million back to the residents. People say, well, the casino makes the money, but we're the only municipality or city in the state of Pennsylvania that ever gave any money back.
I
So
agree. And
we
that's something that we want to make sure that we can protect too.
we want to protect
keep that program in
but
place,
there will be,
absolutely.
and there will be a day, okay, whether we're here or not. You know what I mean? There's going to be a day, okay, that we might have to cut that back a little bit. I don't want to, and there may be a day that they might have to raise the taxes 10 years from now or 12 years from now. And there may, hopefully, something like COVID doesn't happen again. But you can't predict the future completely. We're just doing the best we can with what we got, planning for the future the best we can. But I think overall, we've done a pretty good job when you were here, when you're not here, as a team under the mayor, we've done a pretty good job here. That's my.
And I get it, Joe, and being that we were newer to the board again, we certainly just wanted to readdress some of the concerns and outline some of the items that we had with the budget. Go ahead.
I do have one more question, just because I understand that our auditors meet after the budget's already passed by council. Now, this goes in line with our budget. We have elected auditors to look at our budget. Could the budget?
The elected auditors do not look at the budget. We have professional auditors.
Yeah, but our elected auditors should be looking at our budget as well.
Okay.
My only thing is can we do it in the process where the auditors look at it before it comes to council? There are elected officials as well. Just give them the opportunity to pencil through it prior to us passing it and then them looking at it a month later. Does that make sense?
Well,
I'm
I
just
would say,
asking.
no, unfortunately, it doesn't.
I
okay?
believe there's restrictions around, yeah.
I can understand what you're saying, but.
Yeah.
Anybody can see.
Anybody can see the budget, but I don't,
Yeah.
and this is no disrespect to the people that are elected auditor, but it's more of a ceremonial. They can look at the budget, but we have professional auditors who work for accounting firms.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
Third-party
that.
people who rate us on bonds, so people who lend us money and rate us bonds. So sometimes the auditors don't have the capability of looking at the budget more than professional people, but that's in a code because it's required,
Yep.
right, Joe? Is it required?
Is
that we have
the
an
code
auditor?
Hold on. So there is restrictions to when the auditors can look at it. Mr. Pizzo, just a quick minute, because I want to try to wrap this discussion up. If you wanted to mention are you
What's the
familiar
deal
with the
with the
language and the
auditors and why we
restrictions
have auditors?
are the elected auditors on reviewing the budget?
In a township where the township has moved to having professional auditing firms perform the annual budget, all of the powers that are vested in the elected auditors transfer to the auditing firm that's employed by the township. So all of the powers, all of the responsibilities for the township audit are vested in the appointed auditing firm. In that instance, the power that remains with the elected auditors is they become responsible in those limited instances where an elected official becomes an employee of the township. They set the compensation for those elected officials who might become township employees. That is a power that is granted to elected auditors under the second-class township code and would remain with them in a township or a borough where an appointed auditor is in place. I think in Bucks County, there's probably one, maybe two at most, communities that still have the audits performed by the appointed auditors. Almost everywhere in Bucks County, and for that matter, almost everywhere in the Commonwealth, save for the smallest of townships and boroughs, professionals perform the annual audit.
Let me just confirm, John, when the budget comes out late in the year, publicly available, would there be any issue with providing visibility to the elected auditors if they wanted to move their meeting or schedule a secondary meeting later in the year during that time when the budget comes out?
Well, I do want to, everyone's comparing the auditors to doing the budget. Our auditing firm does not do the budget. I just want to put that out there just so that everyone's on the same page there. Yeah, so obviously the budget is handled internally. The audit is handled internally. However, they handle all of our GASB, they handle our financials through our assistants and everything else. So to answer your question, we have, by second-class township code, responsibility that the budget has to be presented to the public and to council by November 10th of each year. July start scheduling everything. August, we start holding meetings. By September-ish, October-ish, we have a good placement as to where the budget is going to be presented to council and to the public. But certainly, I mean, our door is always open to anyone that wants to come in and discuss budget, whether it's a resident, whether it's the auditor, whether it's obviously you guys included, which that goes without saying, but that is always the open door policy.
Fine, thank you. So just a couple takeaways. Agreeable on the collective bargaining contracts prior to them being adopted by the township and by the mayor, that he would review them with council. We're going to start quarterly reviews during public council meetings. Councilman Sloan is going to send additional comments over to John. And just for council's sake, Section 1703 of the second-class township code does allow township to amend its budget at any time during the fiscal year. The amendments must be made by ordinance. The amendment must follow the same procedure as the original budget adoption. If council so chooses to reopen the budget, public notice is again required for a minimum of 10 days so that it's publicly available for inspection. And then, of course, it has to be re-advertised. Things that can be changed when we open the budget, which John would handle, would be line item appropriations, departmental spending, capital expenditures, transfers, and so forth and so on. And with that said,
we would definitely have I never doubted that we have the authority to do it, but just because you have the authority to do it doesn't mean it's the wise thing to do.
I had it on the agenda for discussion, and I'm gonna open the floor. If someone wants to make a motion to reopen it, so be it. If they do not, then we can close the portion of discussion.
Okay.
I'm very grateful for the things that we talked about, particularly that Council President Tokmajian mentioned as far as being involved in the CBA review, as well as the quarterly budget review. I think that's going to be really helpful. I think that really does paint a really positive path forward for future budgeting efforts as well. So I'm very much appreciative, and I'm glad to do that. I will commit to send these questions to Director Jakowski in the next probably couple days. I'll get them over to you, and you can take a look at them. When would we have to make a decision regarding opening the budget or not? And the reason I ask is because I would probably want some answers to these questions, which are fairly detailed in some instances, before I could really say, like, is it worth it or not? And even as some of my earlier questions alluded to, there's some uncertainty that I know John's got to go off and take a look at.
Mr. Pazzo, I'd direct that question to you.
Sure. So any amendment to the budget that's performed in January and February following a municipal election has to be completed by February 15. That would be the vote on a final amended budget. If an amended budget were proposed to be adopted, what you need to factor in would be a 10-day public review period, and the 10 days begins to run from the day that the notice to the public is advertised in the newspaper of general circulation serving the township. So, assuming it would take Debbie 3 days to place the ad, from if you placed it, typically if you place it on a Thursday for a Sunday run, right? Something like that. So figure 13 days, give or take, between the vote. So if you were to vote to amend the budget at your meeting of January 26th, there would be sufficient time between then and February 15. Now, your council meeting falls on February 9, so if you were going to try and accomplish it without scheduling a special meeting on or about the 15th, you'd need to work backward from the 9th. I think you would still have, you'd still have time between.
But it'd be tight.
But it would be tight, particularly the advertising component of it. Debbie would almost have to run the ad prior to the meeting of the 26th in anticipation of that happening in order for you to do it on the 9th. Or you just schedule a special meeting sometime between the 9th and the 15th.
I think with the, we'll call them guardrails, I think with the guardrails that Mr. Sloan's already suggested and John's cooperation and watching where the extra money is and that it's not being spent until next year's budget that we start working on halfway through the year, I just think that we're almost accomplishing the same thing. By reopening the budget, if you're not going to raise taxes, you're not going to take the $300 back, which I don't think you're going to do, and you're not going to cut the police, which I don't think you're going to do, then we're just like switching around numbers on a sheet to make sure it doesn't seem like it's worth all this effort to me, but you certainly, if you want to do it, you can do it, and I'll help you out the best I can.
Thank you, Mr. Knowles. I mean, I think for me, if we can get some of these questions answered, get a better idea, and we'll work with you over the course of the next week, try and get some answers, I think we'll have a better idea. And at that point, you know, if there's, I think, I'm not speaking for you gentlemen, so this is just from my seat, you know, if there's back and forth and you know, there's a lot of, you know, excess that maybe we want to tighten up, I would hope that that would be a collaborative decision that we, you know, the administration and council kind of agree, all right, let's take another shot at it. Certainly don't want to make this argumentative or confrontational in this process. We want to work together over the next several years. So for me, my path forward is I've got to get you these questions. We can kind of go back and forth and figure out, is there opportunity here? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it?
Right.
And we can go from there.
Okay.
That's where I sit right now.
Open.
I'm comfortable with that. Councilman?
I'm comfortable with that as well.
Okay. All right, great. I think that wraps up that discussion then. First, I thank you for, I thought it was constructive, and thank you for that dialogue. Yep, we were, yeah, so, yep. John, and again, I thank you for the work that you do for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you very much.
We're going to move to agenda number 6, the review of the responsible contract, the RCO ordinance. I don't think there's going to be a lot of back and forth on this. Gentlemen, there was a copy of that RCO draft in your packet for this evening's meeting. I didn't get a chance to go through every single detail of it yet at this point. You could certainly use this forum to ask questions of Mr. Pizzo in terms of any of the changes that were made, or Mr. Pizzo, if you wanted to summarize some of those changes?
Mr. President, certainly, if, I did read through a little bit, and it seems fine with me, but if Mr. Pizzo could review that for
Sure.
us, so
Yep.
we didn't miss anything, and then also the public could get a better understanding of what we're doing here.
Absolutely, yep.
Certainly. So the township has had a responsible contractor ordinance in place since 2009. We've made some changes to it over the years as is true of many things. Once it's implemented, you find out sometimes where the bugs are, so to speak. And one of the changes that we made subsequent to its initial adoption was to create a pre-qualification process, which helped the township and the contractors in terms of making sure that those who were bidding on the jobs met the qualifications and requirements. And these, of course, this applies to capital projects undertaken by the township in all respects in excess of $10,000. And there are certain requirements that are applicable to larger capital projects where the estimated project value is $150,000 or more. In those cases where the project value is anticipated to be $150,000 or greater, the responsible contractor ordinance requires that the contractor participate in a Class A apprenticeship program. Class A apprenticeship program is one that has graduated apprentices to journeyman status in 3 of the prior 5 years. The proposed change that's set forth in the draft in front of you this evening would require not only that the contractor participate in the Class A apprenticeship program, but further that at least 70% of the craft employees or workers employed on a project be either journeymen who have successfully completed a Class A program or apprentices who are currently registered in a Class A program for the trade in which they're going to be employed. Secondly, one of the things that we find periodically is that contractors may have craft or trade employees working in jobs for which they are not otherwise, it's not their craft or their trade, but they're being assigned work that would fall for others. So we've added language to clarify that all craft employees or workers employed on a project can only be assigned work for the craft or trade in which they are employed. From a public safety standpoint, one of the things that we've found and we believe would be appropriate is that all of the craft employees or workers on a project will have to have completed an OSHA 10-hour construction training course for safety. And in the case of the prime contractors, at least one of the craft employees on a project would be required to complete the 30-hour OSHA construction training course for safety. The cost for this is nominal to the contractors, so it's not going to change the project cost for the township, but the safety component for the township and for the workers we believe to be invaluable. So that's something we definitely wanted to add. And finally, in the case of all of these projects for $150,000 or greater, the project contractors are required to pay what's called Pennsylvania prevailing wage. And that's a wage that the wage determination is set by the Pennsylvania Department of Labor for a particular project based on where it is in the Commonwealth, the time of year, and whatever the wage rates are for a particular project that are set by the state, the contractor is required to pay them. And the way that is assured is by the project contractors required to submit certified payrolls to the township on a on a regular basis to confirm that the wages are being paid to the employees at the appropriate amount. One of the things that is happening more and more these days, the township has found, is that a fair amount of the fabrication work for a lot of projects is being done off-site. Components that would be required of a project and are set forth in the project specs. Ductwork is a good example, where that would normally be done on site by the appropriate trade workers. A lot of that now is being done off-site and then being brought to the job site and installed by those workers. What the township wants to make sure is that the same requirements that are applying to the workers on site also apply to these workers who are doing the fabrication work off-site. And the proposed amendments to the responsible contractor ordinance would require that as well. So those are the key components to these changes. Our school district implemented them all in late August. Subsequent to that, we started the process of looking at making the same changes to the township's responsible contractor ordinance. The draft of that is what was provided to you this evening, and certainly the administration would recommend to council that you move forward with this if you are of a mind to do so.
Mr. President, is that why it started in September?
Yes,
To align with when the school board had?
yes.
Okay, all right. I'll open it up to questions. Real quick, too, as well, as far as, it obviously has to be advertised?
It would. What would have to happen is if the draft that's attached is acceptable to council, we'll authorize Debbie to advertise it. I'll add the ordinance language, if you will, at the top and the bottom for you to sign, and we'll have it ready for you for, I'm not sure if it would be for your meeting in January, but certainly for adoption at your meeting in February.
I guess the challenge is that we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time to review it. And what I would suggest is that you just give us time to review, and we can put it back on the agenda for the second meeting in January, if that's
That'd be
okay
fine.
with you.
That'd be great.
And we'll make the motion at that point. So in this way, it'll just give us a little time. If there's any changes or anything, what I would recommend is any of the council members up here this evening, if they want to send them in to Mr. Pizzo, or certainly they could be brought up at the next meeting. I think that would probably be easiest, since we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of time with that.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead. I know you want to.
Go ahead. No, Joe's off.
No,
Go ahead, Joe.
I am fine with doing it that way. and-
Okay.
And I think I read it through pretty
Yeah.
well, and if I have any questions, I will ask
Yep.
Mr. Pizzo.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is something I'm okay with.
Yeah, I agree, and I think,
Whether it's here or
I don't
next
speak for
month,
everybody
it's
either,
fine.
but I mean, we certainly wanted to see us strengthen the RCO, that's for sure. So I think we're on the same page there.
Can I ask just a few questions? Now, I know we just recently put a 12-mile radius on the township for hiring, right? Possibility adding maybe 50% of employers' labor coming within a 12-mile radius of the township as well to this RCO?
I didn't hear, what's the question?
Wants to put the radius for employees of the companies.
Yeah, I think he's talking about having residency
From a
requirements.
purely practical standpoint, Mr. Wenzel, what happens is for any of the projects of this size, the township by statute has to publicly bid them. And so it would not be uncommon or unheard of for a contractor who is stationed in Delaware County or Lancaster County or Allegheny County to be the responsible low bidder on the job. For them then to be required to employ 50% of the workforce on the job from Bensalem,
I didn't say Bensalem, I said within a 12-mile radius of Bensalem.
12 mile radius of Bensalem. Well, even so, I don't know. 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 I don't
Doesn't that restrict the other union workers? They may be from Bensalem working at another site.
No, I'm saying within
They did
12
that all
miles
over
of
the
Bensalem. It gives the opportunity of people locally
Yeah,
within
but
12 aerial miles of
The biggest point was
Bensalem.
if other municipalities did that,
That-
that would hurt the union
that-
workers in Bensalem, they wouldn't be able to have jobs in.
That's
Ready.
That's possible.
That
I'm
percent,
just
that
asking the
percentage,
question.
that percentage might be difficult for most contractors to meet, but I'll tell you what, since we're going to revisit this in 2 weeks, give me an opportunity to run that by a few members, a few contractors and also a few business managers and see what they think, how that would impact the ordinance. But
That's fine.
I'll look into that for you.
No, I appreciate it. And one other thing here is, I know it says one person with OSHA 30 training or current equivalent. Can we spell out supervision in there? And the only reason I say that is they can hire a day one apprentice that went to college that has limited no experience, but he's their 30-hour OSHA person. So somebody who's in a supervisory role that has OSHA 30, that's in other municipalities code currently. That's also in private entities like Merck or other pharmaceuticals where the supervision has to hold that accountability. So I think that would definitely be hypothetically speaking,
That's a great
Councilman
point.
Chuck Major
It's a
can
great
go get
point.
OSHA 30 tomorrow, well, in the next week, and then be hired to do construction on a job. Does that make him the most qualified? Probably not.
No, I think
Oh,
that's
sorry. That would make him the most qualified person. Let me say that. So,
it's an excellent point, Mr. Wenzel.
yes, so at least start with the supervision, spell out supervision. That would be, a start. I would
We'll work that in, certainly.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. And if any council members have any additional items, changes, revisions, please reach out to Mr. Pizzo. Yes, please.
Well, it hasn't been, I don't think so, because it hasn't been advertised.
Technically, the agenda item at the moment is just a discussion, so the council president will instruct the council clerk what to put on next meeting.
Got it. All right. And to that point too as well, and I meant to ask this, Mr. Pizzo, because some of these are discussion items, should I still be opening the floor for public comment on these items? Not that we have a lot of public here in attendance this evening. But I just want-
In this case, the public had the opportunity to comment at the outset of the meeting.
Got it.
There's certainly nothing to stop you, Mr. Tokmajian, but the fact that you didn't, I don't believe has put you in harm's way of the sunshine.
Just making sure. Thank you very much. I'm going to close agenda item 6. Deb will follow up on that for the next meeting. And then we're going to move to agenda number 7, the review of EV charging. And let me say this, and the reason why this came up is because we had a gentleman come to the last meeting. He expressed some concern around what the township was going to do or how they were going to address EVs within the township. And currently, right now, Bensalem's municipal code and zoning ordinances does not include a dedicated section that specifically regulates installation of electrical vehicle chargers on private residential property. And we do certainly recognize that the transition to electric vehicles is real and growing, and that many residents, especially in those in attached homes or don't have access to a private garage, face challenges accessing reliable charging options. And it's a shared issue across communities, across this country, not just Bensalem. And I know that that was pointed out at the last meeting, Mr. Knowles. So, and in fact, which was also pointed out, there are public charging stations across Bensalem. But I want to be clear in this, is that we should still take the concern seriously. And the township should be committed to proactively exploring options to support the EV charging access to all residents. And with that said, there are 5 areas within the township, if anyone else knows, the Coves, Berkeley Trace, Judson Meadows, the Valley, and Springdale. And last year, and I want to point this out because it's important, we were down in the Coves, and we actually almost tripped on charging cords that were going across sidewalks. So it was brought up about the fact that, it wasn't happening, but it in fact is currently in existence as we speak today. So it's something that I think we should get a handle on.
So, yeah,
And that begs the question, whether or not it's a liability on the homeowner or the township at this point.
I will.
But these do not have associations, Joe.
I will say if those individuals, they did it without permits then as well.
Understood.
So let's just, because our electric permit process does require them, even if they have a driveway, if they have a garage, whatever, they are supposed to come in and get a permit to be able to add these electric chargers to your home. So while you may have had that experience in those areas, I will say that the individuals did it without the township's knowledge.
So to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a dedicated section to EV chargers though, right? That still falls within just the electrical code.
Yeah, I would assume it's probably addressing maybe the IBC or something like that.
And it's something that's not uncommon now that townships are actually creating their own dedicated section. And one thing I wanted to also introduce. So being on the Bucks County Planning Commission, look, there are resources available to support the idea of how to address this in the best way and to obviously minimize costs, because we certainly don't want to shoulder the costs at the township level. So I asked the Bucks County Planning Commission to look at it, and this evening we do have Mr. Byrne, from the Bucks County Planning Commission, and I had asked him to come and speak, and I would have actually added him on the agenda with this line item. Unfortunately, I didn't find out until late Friday that he'd be able to attend. And Mr. Byrne, if you wouldn't mind just saying a few words up here, do you mind? Please.
Actually, I knew who it was.
Oh,
And I do want to say that, I don't think that we at the Planning Commission are necessarily experts on EV charging. I will say that. But we are in the midst of actually doing a program to install EV chargers throughout the county at our various county facilities, which will also be available to the public. So, we're seeing that this is a need that, that needs to be addressed, an itch that needs to be scratched in terms of demand for EV charging wherever it is. And Ed came to us, we talked after the meeting that we had this past week and mentioned that there were these communities that were non-HOA that people, and they had parking trays and they had parking, but they didn't have parking that was right adjacent to their house, their abode, and so they were running extension cords perhaps. And so we looked into this. I have an electrical background before I was a civil engineer, so I know enough to be dangerous about electrical matters. And I'm not sure, but I'm kind of guessing that perhaps these might be actually trickle charging situations. In other words, it's not necessarily a class 2, but a class 1 device, which is just in line with a cord that you can plug into a regular 120 volt outlet.
It would have to be, yeah.
Right. Now, if they're installing a class 2 device, then that would most likely be inside their house, and then there would be a 220 line, which would actually be either directly or by a receptacle inside the house connected to that charger. And then again, you would have to run a line out to near the automobile. So you'd need, maybe a 4x4 post with the appropriate outlet, with the right ampacity, and plug facility, and it'd have to be weatherized. And the same thing if you were doing the trickle charging. Otherwise, you're back to running extension cords, which I don't think anybody thinks is safe. It's a tripping hazard, but I think, frankly, it's also an electrical hazard. I don't think that's... Yeah, it's not a good idea.
Another point,
Yeah.
just so you understand, because like you said,
Sure.
you're not, planning commission's not experts, but these parking, the developments he's talking about, they don't have deeded parking, okay? So just because the parking space is in front of your house, it's a row like parking space. So out of courtesy, most people let you park in front of your house, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they just get used to the neighbors, and I have to take your spot for a move over, you know? But they're actually not deeded spots. So you can't have people putting electrical charger, and then that's not their spot. So if you put an electrical charger in somehow, installed, I could just pull up to your spot and park there, and then you can't charge your car because my car's there. Yeah, and then if everybody was doing it, it would just be, it would be
Well,
hard.
we do get residents in those neighborhoods that do get handicap spots designated in front of their homes.
They do.
So how do we
I don't know.
How do we
I was
treat
gonna
that
ask-
differently? Because I just don't know.
Well, it's a fight,
It
but I
sounds sure
do
it
think,
is.
I do think that they, and believe me, I'm all for them.
That was my question that I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
I don't
ChatGPT
think,
A real handicap space, say 2 spaces,
yeah, but
a space and a half.
I think that's a courtesy thing too, actually. I don't think there's, or maybe not, but I think if you put this electrical charger, then
No,
you're
the
gonna have.
township is the one that puts the sign down.
Yeah, so the
Residents aren't doing it.
Let Paizo talk about
handicap, well,
Let Paizo talk about it. That's a legal thing.
yeah,
But I don't want to make it worse for them.
I just, well, hold on a second. I just want to make sure Mr. Burton speaks and finishes first. if you
Okay,
don't
yeah, I'm
mind,
sorry. I
please.
just wanted to make sure you understood
yeah,
that,
yeah,
that,
Well, and I don't know that, I mean, that aspect of it, you guys are going to have to.
I know.
Understood. And
I just want to make,
you know,
I guess the question is that,
I know.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Are you,
Well, no, what I was going to say is that, and it may not be discreetly in your code, but I would think that you would want to have it so that if you were going to allow charging curbside in these developments, that you would have an installation that would follow some of the things that I just discussed for safety reasons. And even for the trickle charge, well, for any of these, they're also under another electrical rule, an NEC rule, which is that it's called the 80% rule. So if you had, say, a 20 amp service circuit that goes out for that charging, you can only go up to 16 amps, 80% of that, if you're utilizing that circuit for more than 3 hours. So if you're extending it with charging, you're doing that over a longer period of time. So when you do that, then you have to, in essence, have a facility which is in essence rated to handle more amps than it typically would, because it's going to be utilized for more than 3 hours. It could be utilized for 12, 14 hours overnight charging. So, and my understanding is that these cars, the current requirement for them, the size of the load is generally somewhere between 12 and 16 amps. Most of them, they try and size at 12, so that if someone would just plug it in with the trickle charger that's usually supplied with the car, that it would be safe, but not all of them do. And it would probably be more ideal if you were going to put something in your code with respect to that. I think it would make sense maybe, because if the resident's going to have that installed anyway, it's not that much more to just have the 20 amp circuit put in instead of the 15. I think that kind of might make sense. As far as actually the other chargers, I mean, that's just running a circuit that's for 240 instead of 120. And it would be a lot of the same things, except you'd actually have a charging unit. I don't know what they're doing. They don't get much of a charge out of the Class 1. The Class 1, you're talking if they charge that overnight, maybe they get like 50 miles worth of charge. So if they have a close commute, maybe they're running an errand on the way home, they can get away with that. If it's more than that, there's no way that they're going to be able to do it unless they have a Class 2 device inside their house. So.
Just to summarize our discussion, because we did a little deeper dive in terms of some of the challenges that I had mentioned, and that's coming up here at the meeting,
Right.
As far as dedicated parking, who's gonna own the charger, who would maintain it, and there were a number of different options that kind of we just threw out, right? In terms of maybe there's a partnership with the township that could happen with a particular EV charging company out there. We talked about potentially looking at utilizing some of the public space that was within these neighborhoods. So maybe at least this way, we cannot isolate and dedicate a specific spot in front of that resident's home, but at least this way, we can at least have 2 chargers that are installed somewhere within close proximity of walking distance to their home. I guess what,
That you can legally do, the problem is, okay, just, not to interrupt.
Yep, go ahead.
And I read about this a little bit myself. So there's a program through the infrastructure program, okay, that offers public funds.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be through the states, okay?
Yep.
They put $5 billion into it, and the states spread that $5 billion, and that lets smaller areas who had non-access to electric charger, put chargers in. But so far, they did 38 chargers or 40 chargers in the whole United States. And it's been with $5 billion.
Right.
So we could get a grant through
Yep.
that program. If you could get it, first of all, there should be money available to go through the state.
Yep.
But you have to come up with the other 20%. So you'd have to have fun, so they would pay 80%, but somehow they only were able to build 37 or 38 or 40. Now, they have a separate one that's another this is $2 billion, I think, I'm sorry. The other one's $5 billion, $7 billion altogether. That one's for highways. Like for highways, they only built like 200 or 250 in the whole United States.
Yep.
So for us to put 2 or 3 in each building, hey, in a perfect world, that's fine. We can get somebody to do it, or we can get a grant for 80%, find maybe the county can fund the other 20.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. And then 2 things. So I agree with you. So I was going to ask John, from what we talked, and I believe we have taken on a person to handle grants. And is that something that individual can look into in terms of infrastructure for EVs?
Number 1, designate the areas where.
Yeah, well, I mentioned them, Mayor. So,
Certain areas that open.
It
yeah.
has to be open to the public, though.
Well, second, here's the other thing, is that there were reasons why we brought on an engineer. Nothing against you, Phil, but we brought on a special project engineer, and I don't know if it would behoove us to have them look at these areas and lay out what the best option is in those particular neighborhoods to try to at least give an option. And to your point, Joe, also simultaneously having John look at potential grant money for it to avoid our costs.
The problem with using that money from the federal government that's provided to the states, which you could use, but it's supposed to be available to the public, and I don't know if you can restrict it to people who live on certain streets.
No, I don't think you.
I don't,
Or maybe you can, I don't know.
I
It's supposed to be open to the
I
public.
doubt it, but the point is that it's accessible, it could be open to the public, but if it's in the,
Yeah,
say,
more likely
in
they
this,
would use
part of the coves or whatever down by the playground, then it's that neighborhood that's gonna use it.
Well,
Somebody's
it-
not gonna be coming off 95 and stopping
Right.
there for a charge.
No, but someone who lives across the street could say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna run down there and charge my car and tie it up for 6 hours or 2 hours or whatever.
Well, so, but, oh, shit, sorry.
He
The,
slows stuff like.
the chargers that are going in those neighborhoods and stuff, are they for the public access? Those are the level 3 chargers, the super fast chargers, correct? Generally speaking?
No, I think that we're talking about level 2. I mean, the level 3s, there aren't that many out there. They're very fast, and there's some of them, but I think that you would probably be talking about a level 2 charger.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that would be much slower.
and if they can't.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still pretty fast. Like if you had a level 2 charger at your house, you could get a full charge of your batteries in one evening, overnight.
Sure,
Okay, versus a small fraction of that with the level 1. Now, the level 3, you get that in hours, or very,
Right.
very quickly.
Yeah, okay.
And there's 2 scenarios. One, they leave the charger in the car, right? And if you partner up with a particular company, well, they would charge you added fees if you left that charger in that car once it's fully charged on a charging station that's fully.
I don't know about that. I'm sorry,
I
go
think
ahead.
the level 3 chargers do that on those,
Oh, just
the
the level
rapid
3.
charging stations.
Yeah, they're-
I don't know if it's possible on the other ones,
Right, yeah.
And that might be contingent upon the app. Maybe, some apps, it might actually then notify you by your telephone that, it's done charging, and then it's your responsibility to go out within a certain period of time and remove it from the charger. So you're not taking away charging time from someone else, and, you're not just wasting, the charging.
Right,
So-
and then, of course, then we'll have to deal with a situation where someone leaves the car there, but it's not plugged in. I mean,
enforcing it.
and enforcing, right, yeah. So I guess two things. One, John, is there potential to get some grant money on it? And two, does it make sense to at least have someone such as our special project engineer look at some of these neighborhoods? And Mayor, to answer your question, the Coves, Berkeley Trace, Judson Meadows, the Valley, and Springdale. Those are the neighborhoods where we have fixed townhomes that could potentially utilize some of these EVs.
So the valley would not be an issue because everyone has a driveway in the valley.
No, not everybody, Springdale, parts of Springdale.
Well,
don't.
okay, so in the Chamonix Valley versus Springdale.
Springdale, I think,
Okay.
is,
Yeah,
not
there
the
are-
Chamonix Valley, Springdale.
Okay.
Okay, but in
Has
any
the
event,
road.
I guess my
Well,
next question
it's
is
not real.
who's
It's
ultimately
called
paying
Springdale.
for the charge? So is it one of these, like, if you go to a Wawa, you're utilizing your credit card? Who's going to receive those funds as well as who's paying the electric bill?
I think I can speak to that. I mean, the research that we did was, there's sort of a range of companies that do it different ways. There's some companies that they're paying all the upfront costs, and they take care of everything. So they do the installation, they do the maintenance, they do the operation of it, they have the app, they do everything. But then, in most of those instances, the revenue from that is all theirs.
Sure.
Right? So, and then that, it goes down the spectrum all the way to, if it's a really desirous location, you're gonna get a lot of business, and you're coming in with even maybe some of the upfront costs as far as the installation, then you can take a bigger piece of the pie. The township could actually get revenue from this. So, and it just depends on what you negotiate. That's my understanding. And it could be somewhere in between. It certainly would be very easy with some of these companies. If they're willing to do everything, you just have to satisfy, they have to believe that if they're going to saddle all those upfront costs and invest, that they're actually going to be able to get their money out in a reasonable period of time, be able to do it. So it just depends. But that's sort of the way I believe that works.
Yep.
John, we were just talking about alternative revenue streams.
The budget.
Yeah, well, I'm actually more concerned of the upfront initial, and again, cost, right? So, the township had a number of years ago looked at adding EV chargers to the driveway. It ultimately turned out that it was going to cost us over $40,000 just to bring the electric to the two charging stations from Pico.
Yes, so that is important. That's something that we looked at when we did our evaluation for the project that we're undergoing at the county, is the accessibility to the power grid.
Yeah.
Right? If it's way far away and you have to actually run lines and you have to put a whole panel in and whatever you have to do to get that electric, whereas if you're right near, say, the distribution system,
Yep.
it makes it much easier to do it. And that's one cost that even the company that we researched that basically does it almost turnkey, they still want you to bring the electric to them.
Correct.
They'll do everything else, but they need the electric to
That's a
them.
lot.
So you have to be careful about the selection. That could be something that one of your engineering firms could do, is look at these sites and kind of determine what the best course would be as far as placement, not just for the residents and where you could put the little parking area, but also access to power.
Yeah. When we looked at this a number of years ago for the township itself, there was a grant program out there, but they were only covering the cost of the charging station and so on and so forth. Everything ancillary, basically the installation and this charging station would be covered through the grant through a portion share, but bringing electricity, the ongoing cost of the electricity and everything else, that would be on us ultimately. So that's just, but listen, there's different opportunities out there that change. We can investigate what's out there and then, bring it to
I'm okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So this is not really 100% related to the townhome communities that are existing, but when we look at new development projects for large tracts of land, and we're talking about the Chamonix Mall, the Armstrong Middle School property, all those kinds of things, is there an opportunity to put something into the code to require a certain amount, just like there's a requirement for, other parking formulas and stuff, to incorporate EV spots in that? That way it's built into the infrastructure during that project, you're basically starting with a greenfield or brownfield site anyway.
That's
You
a
got to
good-
run
that's a good idea.
electricity
That's a good
anywhere.
idea. That's a good idea.
But you build that in, make it a requirement in the code. That way we don't have to go back every time with these developers and negotiate. But there should be an expectation, because we're certainly seeing more electric vehicles in the township.
The casino has like 30 or 40 spots.
Yeah, the Wawa's have them too. But my
But
other
the-
point
but the-
is,
But the thing is, with some of those is like the casino has it, it's like free for X amount of time, and then you have to pay for it afterwards. Like,
Yeah.
so same thing with the mall. It was like free for like a half hour, and then you have to pay for it afterwards.
Yeah.
That's something that if we could potentially put them in public parks or something,
well,
then.
they still have to pay for it though, don't they, for those public parks?
Yeah, well, I'm saying if we put them in the parks and people were going to use them,
They have
the
to pay for
township
the
gives them
electric.
the first half hour free while the kids are playing.
Yeah.
And then after that, if they stick around and want to continue to charge, the township
Well,
would.
my point is that it's good we're discussing this, and it's good that he's looking into grants and ideas, and that was a good idea by Jesse. I don't personally want to pay an engineer to study, like, start mapping this out and stuff, because I think Buick just canceled all their electric cars, okay? And Ford just canceled their F-150 electric truck, okay? So, and we have $7 billion out there in federal money floating around somewhere that's supposed to build more public charging stations, and everybody with a driveway has the capability of putting their own charging station in if they get the proper permits, and they can go to other places to charge their cars. So I think, in a perfect world, we could get to a point where they have portable chargers where a person could charge it in their house and roll it out to their car and give themselves a charge just to get to other places that charge them faster.
Mr. Knowles, I don't disagree that,
I just don't wanna put-
I don't disagree that the demand is leveling off for complete EVs, but there's an increase in hybrids, which is still going to require a plug-in. But
I got one question.
There
Are all
there
electric
are
cars-
plug-in hybrids.
Have the same hookup now?
I'm
Is
sorry?
Tesla still different than the
no,
others?
not yet.
You can get adjustments apparently.
All right, so
Yeah,
I just
there are
want to,
adapters. It's still, it's not completely standardized yet.
I think we're good.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it.
You're
Thanks so
welcome.
much for coming.
Yeah.
There's a game on.
President, if I might, just want to reach out about Scott. Scott is no stranger to Bensalem. He's worked through not only the Bucks County Planning Commission of recent, but he was formerly with the Department of Transportation and was instrumental in helping us with a lot of things here in Bensalem. The mayor knows him very well and his colleagues, and he's always been a man of trying to find solutions for these types of things. So I'm thrilled that he's here tonight.
Yep.
And he's also on our TMA board for the county, which I'm still the president of, and Scott's a newly member as part of the Bucks County Planning Commission as the representative there too.
Yep.
And that's another location where we could look for grants through the TMA. And both Scott, either myself or Scott can look at that. And that's free of charge, just to take a look at and see what it would take for us to
That'd be great.
help with the municipal program.
Yep.
So-
Why not
so-
leverage the resources that we have available to us? And that's why we were talking.
And
Yep.
Scott, I want to mention real quick, since he mentioned that, the $7 billion from the infrastructure bill, it was supposed to be monitored, run through the Department of Transportation to the states. So maybe you can look at that a little bit, or see what
Yeah,
the Department of Transportation
We can. I have a feeling that,
Like, I don't understand where that money is. Why can't we get access to some of it?
well, I don't know. I have a feeling that some of the funds that the county is utilizing for the project that they're doing, maybe some of those funds.
Yeah.
But I can certainly look into that. The
Yeah.
only other thing that I would add, I hope it's okay with the rest of you guys, is I think that doing something, even if it's a small assessment, and I get what you're saying, you just don't want to pay engineers and if you don't need to. But a lot of times with grants, because we do a lot of grant stuff where I work, is that you need something, whether you call it an assessment, I don't know what a study, you need something, right? So that you can tee up yourself for grants, right?
So you have
Plus,
the
it makes it-
justification for why it's warranted in the first place.
Right,
I agree with what
I'm
you're saying.
just saying, it does help, you
If-
know,
if-
and you
if
don't have to
there's-
spend a whole lot of money, but something on paper that maybe identifies some sites and the demand and whatever,
Yeah.
something. It
For the
doesn't have to
narrative.
be 100 pages, it can be 10 or 15 pages that tees you up to get the grants. That's all I just wanted to
So
add.
we'll do the first
Try to help you out.
investigation of what grants are out there, what the cost share is, what the requirements of them are, whether they're fully funded, whether they're, like I said, without the electricity cost brought into it, and then we'll circle back.
Right.
All right, I want to revert back to the townhomes, though. So a lot of these townhomes have, their lawn, sidewalk, another patch of lawn that they're responsible for.
Thanks, Scott.
What would stop them from, boring underneath the sidewalk, putting up a bollard, and like most of the townhomes, most apartments, commercial buildings, even this one has a sign that says like FDC, right? So they put up a sign with a shut-off outside of their home. Boom, problem, neighbor sees something, police, fire have to show up, shut off. I have solar on my house. There's a sign that says, this is where you shut it off before the fire department comes. So what would stop these homeowners from being able to do that to their own home?
Because the parking spot that's in front of their house.
I understand.
It's not deeded to their house.
I understand,
So
but
they
we
don't
already
own
have.
it. So everybody in that development owns it just as much as they do.
Yeah.
So they have no right to bore stuff to it and put stuff on it and tie it up by putting an electric car on it unless everybody agrees to it.
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, we have that for handicap parking
We
as well.
said that.
So we can amend it and say, hey, these are the two exceptions,
The other
because,
thing is.
Okay, well, we said that already.
Anything you can make work one way or the other. One thing is you can't have a cord going across the sidewalk and everything. You can't.
Yeah.
well, that's why I'm saying if they go underneath the sidewalk and come up, and then they put a bollard in front of it, so if somebody backs into it, they hit the car instead of, they hit the bollard instead of the electrical charging. In the event of a fire, they shut the, fire alarm, here's the sign that says where it's located. That's my point, if they go underneath and up. The only concern is, I agree with Councilman Knowles that we would have to deed a spot to them, just like somebody who's handicapped. Now, that would be a conversation to be had.
Let's have John look. Yeah, let's have John look at it, and then we'll go from there. And John, you'll report back to us on what you find? Of course. Thank you. All right. I'm going to close out agenda number 7 and try to move along the meeting. Last item, agenda number 8, the Township Auditor Resignation, which, gentlemen, you have received it in your packet. There are 2 options available to you. At this point, we could simply nominate someone to replace that individual that is currently resigning, who is Dominic Webster, or we could provide public notice, put public notice out, and then receive resumes into the township, and then at a future council meeting date, then we could then go through those resumes and choose who we so should want to. So just trying to gauge the temperature in terms of which direction you want to go.
Mr. President, I believe when this happened in the past, the last time it happened that I can recall, that it was the latter strategy that we took, where we received resumes. I think we even interviewed the candidates here prior to the council meeting.
Yeah.
We did do that.
Yep.
But that's, Mr. Pisa would have to know what we're supposed to do.
So- So those are the 2 options, Mr. Knowles, which I laid out. So if I gather that the understanding is that.
I just want to do it the right way.
Council, so does that council have any particular issue with me directing the administration to put public notice on our website to notify residents that that auditor position is open and to submit resumes for consideration?
What Mr. Tokmajian proposes is acceptable. What you should do this evening is vote to accept the resignation. That is a requirement under the second-class township code. That will start a 30-day clock running. And so
30-day clock for what?
30
To
days
advertise?
to fill it.
To fill it.
So my suggestion would be, based on what I hear the 4 of you saying, is you could target your meeting of February 9 as the night at which you would vote to appoint a new elected auditor. Although you could do it at the meeting of the 26th. Debbie can arrange for notice to go on the township's various social media platform as early as tomorrow, advising people that anyone interested should submit a letter of interest to the council clerk. And if you were going to do it on the 26th, I would suggest to you that maybe have the 21st or the 22nd as the cutoff date. That'll give Debbie time to distribute them to you prior to the meeting of the 26th. If you wanted to do it at the council meeting of February 9, obviously that gives you a little bit more time. And again, pick a cutoff date. She can then forward out to all of you those applications she receives, and you can
Okay,
vote
that's
at one of those two meetings.
Let's do February 9th then. Okay. Can I ask council for a motion to accept the resignation as received?
So moved.
Need a second?
I'll second it. Since
Okay.
he's my old neighbor, I'll second it.
All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the motion?
Was he a good neighbor?
Yeah, very good. Very nice guy. Walk his dogs every day.
I'll work with Debbie to put together a notice.
Okay.
And go out if you'd like to see it
All right.
beforehand, Mr. Tagmasia, we can swing it by.
Thank you. I want to take the vote. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, thank you. Okay. Deb, you got your direction on that? Okay. Last item on agenda number 9, public comment. Is there any public comment for this evening? Seeing none, I'll close public comment portion for this evening. Number 10, other business. I'll go around the room. Anything you have? Okay. Phil?
Just go Flyers and go Sixers now.
Sisters.
Deb, do you have anything?
Sisters. The Sixers choked.
Councilman Wenzel.
No, thank you.
Councilman Knowles, you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Sloan?
Only to say that it's really nice to be up here working with everybody again. So thank you. Really appreciate the discussion and the back and forth tonight. I know that this was an agenda that I don't think we anticipated to have much of anything to talk about, but I thought there was a lot of really fruitful discussion. So thank you all very much.
Great, thanks. I'll go down the end. Mr. Pison?
Nothing further. Have a good evening, everyone. Go Birds.
John?
Gone bird.
What bird?
John, did you have anything? Is it your mayor?
Just remind everybody that starting on the 19th is Martin Luther King's, and it starts Community Week.
Yep.
So anybody gets a chance, look at all the dates. There's, I think, 4 different dates where we'll be going to different churches and institutions and synagogues. So I hope that everybody takes part in it if you can.
Yep.
It's a good thing. And Pittsburgh leading 3-0.
Got it. Okay. The Monday, the 19th is the kickoff, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
Should we mention what
For Unity
institutions
Week.
have the best food, or we shouldn't do that?
No, that's, no. You know, at the end of the day, it's a great week.
You'll be there, right?
Yeah. Yep.
All council will be there if you can.
We're going to try, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at the
Unity
breakfast.
Week, the breakfast, yeah.
Yeah, at Parks.
You get the breakfast?
I'll let them know by the end of the week.
Okay, sounds good. So I was going to mention Unity Week, and then I also want to mention, we have a great organization that's doing a lot of good things, the Bridge Clinic. I went down and they had an event over the holidays, but it was just another great organization that's supporting the care of dogs and cats. So I encourage the public to, to go check that out, and they're located in the Valley. Lastly, too, before I forget, John, I do want to also make public notice about the concern with emails going out regarding fraudulent emails related to building and planning fees. Did you want to mention that real quick
Yeah.
before I end the meeting?
Sure, yeah. So we did have an issue, actually on 2 occasions now, where individuals in their infinite wisdom, wish they would do other things with their skills other than try and scam people out of money. So any individual attending a zoning hearing board meeting could have possibly received a fraudulent phishing scam, looking like it's coming from the township of an invoice, requesting a dollar figure payment. We did notify all the last applicants that issue had occurred after we were notified by one of the applicants. We have made it a point to, going forward, we will be redacting personal information off of the applications that are being put online as part of the agenda items. We are reaching out to other municipalities to see if they're running into these issues and what they're doing to try and combat it as well, to make sure we're doing everything we can. We did blast out to social media today, advising the public of this issue. We'll do our best to make sure that, as best as we can, public information is withheld for zoning hearing board members.
Is that also going on our website too as well?
Yeah, Darren had done it this afternoon, or late this afternoon. Social media, the web, it's on the building and planning section as well as the homepage of the website.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That's all I had. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
And we're adjourned. Thank you.